Hello, welcome to Little Literati. I'm Jess, and this is January. But what, I hear you asking? This is only the November wrap-up video. I know, I'm super behind on my videos. We had, in addition to the holidays, which of course were crazy, at the beginning of December we had another family emergency. My maternal grandfather passed away really unexpectedly, and so once again we had to kind of drop everything and travel for the funeral, and it was really, really emotional for me because my grandfather and I were really, really close, and it was just really a hard time. So I'm sorry I'm a little bit behind on everything. Hopefully I'm gonna get caught up and start the new year out with a bang. So let's pretend that this is November, and these are the books that I read in November. So I managed to read 7 books all the way through, and then I got halfway through another one, although as of this video I still have not finished it, so I'm not gonna bring it up until I finish reading it. So we'll just talk about the ones I finished. A lot of these were things that I listened to on Audible while I was traveling and while I was working on projects and things. So I once again listened to, or read via listening, Marked in Flesh, which was book 4 of the other series. And you know this is a good series because I've now read it, the entire thing, all the way through twice this year. So I read book 4, and I also read book 5. Again, I listened to it, but I checked out the library, so I had something to show during the video. But anyway, I loved them. The narrator was really excellent, and I'm looking forward to the spin-off series coming out in just a couple of months with Lake Silence. So it was just kind of something nice and familiar to listen to while I was working on other things. I did manage to reread the Eyre, and hopefully we'll soon be able to get working on the other series, the rest of the series, now that I have the other books. So the Eyre was fun, although I didn't love it as much as I loved it the first time around, and I think that's just because I had remembered so much about the literary side of things that I was anxious to get back to the literary side of things, and so I was really, really tired of hearing about politics in the book, but hopefully that won't be quite as much an issue in later books because the war is over. So anyway, this is a reread for me. In fact, no, not all of them. Most of these are rereads for me, but I read Austenland. Actually, I listened to Austenland. This is the UK cover because I liked the covers. I actually got these several years ago, but I bought this one and the sequel, and I liked that they had matching covers on bookdepository.com, so I got the UK versions because I liked how they looked together on the shelf. So this is Austenland, and if you haven't read this or watched the movie with Kerry Russell, it's really, really a fun ride for those of us obsessed with Jane Austen, with any of her stories, with the time period, anything like that. This is a really fun romp. It's a modern day character, but she travels to a kind of a resort that is Austenland, and it revolves around Jane Austen and her books in the time period, and the character kind of gets caught up in what is real and what isn't, and what kind of relationship is she really looking for. So it's really a fun story by Shannon and Hale, and I really enjoyed it, and it was just fun to listen to. It only took a couple of hours to get through as well. Another reread for me was Jane's Slayre. Again, I listened to this instead of reading it again, but this is by Charlotte Bronte and Sherri Browning Erwin. And I first came across this when my husband and I think we were still dating. And we were browsing through Barnes & Noble, or we were first married or something. It was very early in our relationship. And I know that Pride and Prejudice and Zombies had come out, and I remember seeing a display for this and rolling my eyes and saying, oh, how stupid. Like, why can't they just let the stories stand on their own instead of trying to make them sensational and horror and all of this? Why can't they just leave it alone? And I remember being really disgusted about it, and it even says on the back, reader, I buried him. And I was like, oh, that's awful. Oh my gosh, I can't believe them. I mean, it's kind of funny. I do like puns. But geez Louise, like, why can't they just... And I refused to read any of the mashups for the next 7 years. And then I was walking through the library and I was just browsing, and I caught something grabbed my eye. It was called Grave Expectations, which was also by the same author. And so it was Great Expectations with werewolves. And I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. So I checked it out and I read it and I thought it was really, really great. And then I saw that she had also written this, the Jane Slayre, and I was like, okay, well, I love Jane Eyre. I think I might be ready for this. And I think I spoiled myself for it because I think she does a really, really excellent job with both of these books that she has done, because the narrative and the style of writing flows seamlessly. And, I mean, you can obviously tell which parts are added because they have supernatural elements, but the writing style is the same. And so I really, really enjoyed this. My only one complaint with this book is that towards the end, Jane is training with St. John Rivers, and she helps him develop a weapon called a stake-o-matic. And just that, it bothers me. It's too anachronistic and I don't like it, but it's the one complaint, is that the name is a little bit too cheesy and modern, the stake-o-matic. Other than that, I really, really love this book because it melds the supernatural, and I've been obsessed with vampires since I was 6 years old. So for 22 years now, I've loved stories about vampires, and it combines that with my favorite classic. So I really, really love the way she handled this. In fact, I then decided to go and read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and I didn't like it because the styles were too dissimilar. And you could tell very, very clearly which parts were tacked on to Jane Austen, because Seth Grahame-Smith just couldn't meld it the way that Sherri, Browning, Erwin did. So she's only done the 2 mashups, but I really like both of them, and Jane Slayre is my favorite of all of the mashups that I've read. So these next 2 were both from subscription book boxes, so I finally am starting to get working on those. I'm not done with my list, but I'm hoping to try to keep making headway. So this was Roar by Cora Carmack, and it seemed interesting when I first got it, but I don't know, there was just something holding me off. But I started reading it, and I really, really enjoyed this book. And Roar is a nickname for Princess Aurora, and in this world they're overcome by all these various storms. There are snowstorms and hurricanes and tornadoes and firestorms and all kinds of different storms. Even fog counts as storms, but every storm has a heart to it. And the members of these royal families and noble families can go and fight the storms, and they can collect the hearts, which are shaped like they're jewels in various colors and shapes and things. And then they use those for their own kind of magic, that they can also turn around and then use that magic towards other storms to try to defeat them. So it's kind of a vicious cycle, like a cyclone. Anyway, this one I really, really enjoyed. The sequel, I think, is Rage, and it's coming out next summer. This summer. No, we're pretending it's November. So yes, next summer. And I'm excited to see what happens, because something is revealed at the end of this, and I'm not going to spoil it, but something is revealed at the end that makes her very, very special. And I'm really looking forward to seeing her go up against the main bad person in the story. So it was an interesting take on storms and an interesting take on magic, and I just really enjoyed the whole book. And she wasn't a complete incompetent either, and she was persistent and willing to learn and had some competency around her anyway. She wasn't just the ignorant moron peasant that has to learn everything on the go. This next book was Daughter of the Burning City, and this one is about a girl who has the ability to create illusions, and her illusions can actually become alive, and they are her family. So they all have their own deformities, but they are a family, except that they start visiting Gomorrah. They live in Gomorrah, which is a traveling city of sin, and they go around to all of these cities to let people peruse their city, and it's like a traveling Las Vegas pretty much. And so people can go and participate in essentially a carnival type with, you know, gambling, and there are some brothels. I know there aren't in, but we're gonna move past that. But in several of these cities that they travel to, members of her family start dying, which is interesting since they are illusions. They shouldn't be alive, which means they shouldn't be able to die. And so she's trying to solve the mystery of how her illusions and family members are dying off. And it's great because we also see drawings that she used, let's see if I can find one, that she used to create her family members when she first came across them. And then you have the killer's notes and drawings over it, and how they're going to kill various members of her family, and what their weaknesses are, and how to overcome them. And so it's it's definitely a wild ride on this book, and it's probably a standalone. It doesn't seem like there's really too much left to explore, but who knows? She could open a whole new avenue of thought and a whole new set of ideas for the city of Gomorrah. But it was interesting, and it probably wasn't my favorite book this year. It reminded me a little bit of the book Carnival, but it also kind of stood on its own merits, and it really was enjoyable. Like I said, probably not my favorite, but it was a fun, enjoyable read. So those were the 7 books that I read in November. And if you'll stay with me, very shortly we'll get around to things I read in December, and then we will also look forward to January. So thank you for staying with me. We'll see you in the next video.